All right, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Melissa Ochel and I work in the Center for International Education here at the College of Charleston. And thank you for joining us for our virtual Study Abroad Fair Week. We are here today to learn a little bit more about what our students can expect studying abroad on exchange at Montfort University located in the UK. And we are joined today by one of their staff members, Amena, who would help incoming exchange students. So I'll turn it over to her to let us know a little bit more about DMU and her role.
Thank you, Melissa, for the introduction. So as you said, my name is Amena, student exchange coordinator here at DMU. So like you said, my primary role is really to welcome incoming students onto campus, help you with the process and any issues that you might have upon arrival, organize all the events and things like that after you arrive. And then on the flip side, I also look after our outgoing students, so DMU students that will be going out on exchange and don't know elsewhere. So yeah, I kind of do both. So just to give you a little bit. Great. So yeah, as I was saying, we have over 27,000 students and 3,000 staff on campus. We've got a very multicultural and ethnically diverse population. So that's not true just for Montfort University itself, but the city of Leicester. So I think for me, that's one of the best things about DMU is if you come here, you get to meet people from all across the world. Not just other exchange students, but local students that are studying here. We recently got awarded as being the #1 university for careers and employability. So again, I think that's a fantastic thing that exchange students can take advantage of, because obviously one of the big parts of doing exchange is working on your employability. And as part of that, you can kind of improve some of those transferable skills that you might need and get some sort of important advice about potentially working abroad and things like that. We're also a designated hub by the UN, so we look after SDG 16, and that's something that's quite unique and important at the university. So a lot of the curriculum, for example, is geared towards including some of those more international outlooks and sustainable development. We are a city-based campus, so the university is located directly into the city centre, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on, as it just makes everything very accessible. It's also been ranked as one of the best cities in terms of cost towards food, rent and fun, so it's really cheap. We're only located about an hour away on the train from London, but the amount in the cost of living is completely different. So again, we understand that, studying abroad is quite an expensive experience sometimes. So knowing that the cost of living is going to be good is always good to know. So I've actually just put a little table here to kind of let you know what the cost would be. But I can always circulate the slides later on, or if you've got any questions, then I can always provide this to you later on. And then just a little bit about the campus and the actual academic programs available. So this building here is the Hawthorne building. It's one of our oldest, so you'll get to see kind of a range of traditional and modern buildings. So this is home to the Health and Life Sciences faculty. And I think with exchange, two of the top courses for students that are coming in are psychology and education studies. So this is potentially where you'd be studying those. The Vijay Patel building, which is also in my background, is one of our latest ones, and it's the art, design and humanities. We also have a gallery in there. It's connected to the food village, and yeah, it's got a nice terrace as well. So a really cool place to kind of chill in between classes. This is the Queen's building, so this is home to computing, engineering and media. The style of it is actually really sustainable as well. It's all solar powered, and it's got a very cool nautical theme inside it. And then this is the business school, so the business and law faculty is primarily in here. We do have plenty of other buildings on campus as well, but these are the four main sort of faculty related ones. And then I also put the student union in here, so we've got a dedicated building for student union activities. There's also cafes and shops and things like that on the ground floor. So again, it's a nice place to use in between studies or grabbing your lunch or something like that. So yeah, as I mentioned, these are the kind of overview of the four faculties, but art and design, I think it's what makes us stand apart, because it is quite practical and it's not something that all kind of UK universities offer to the depth that we do. So we have things like textile design, contour fashion, footwear, things like that. And then we have the more traditional subjects like in business and law, politics, history, English. So yeah, there's a whole range of different things. I think one of the questions was about sort of the most common subject areas that we receive students from. So I'll just kind of mention it here if that's okay. So it's nice that Stacey's here because business is probably the most sort of popular subject for incoming students. I think that might just be because business always tends to be focused on having a year abroad as part of the program. But nonetheless, it's a fantastic. We've got like a range of business management, human resource management, accounting and finance, economics, all kind of built into one. So you can kind of mix and match a little bit of modules from different subject areas there. And then the next I'd say, so history, humanities, design, those ones. And then most recently, I've seen an increase in media and journalism. Again, quite interesting courses that we've got sort of lab spaces and technical suites and facilities and things like that available. So a really cool subject to be studying. So yeah, that's kind of the start from me. And then if you want to move on to the questions.
Yeah, so your courses are typically full year courses. So for our students who just want to study for one semester, is the recommendation for fall semesters then for the most part?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so that's the very important point actually, because the teaching basically at DMU starts in the fall semester and it continues all the way through. So if students were to arrive in spring, it would kind of be like you're thrown into the middle of the teaching year and it wouldn't obviously be advisable or beneficial for you. So we do recommend either coming in the fall or you can stay for the full academic year and follow the course through. But in each faculty, there is sort of course offers available in most places, unless you're doing sort of something very specific. I can always check for you. And Melissa, I can also send you, we've got a spreadsheet where I've literally just ticked which ones are available for fall only to hopefully make that a bit easier. But again, most of the bigger courses I've mentioned are available for fall semester. So things like business, humanities, media, journalism, you can come and study just for fall if that's easier.
Perfect. Can you talk a little bit about arrival, orientation, course registration, those sorts of things?
Yeah, so wait, sorry, I've got a slide on this.
Oh, that's okay.
So arrival and orientation, yeah. So in terms of module selection, course registration, I'll address that first because it's quite important. So when you're actually completing your application form to DMU, we'll send you all the module choices for the following year. And there's also a module choice form that all students complete. And we send that off to the faculty coordinators and their sort of academics who make sure that your transcripts and everything confirm that you've got the prerequisites that you need. And then usually at that point it's sort of like a provisional acceptance, because sometimes obviously things do change depending on timetables and things like that. But 2 weeks after your arrival, you still have the opportunity to change any classes. So you might actually turn up and attend a class and think, this is not what I expected. So you can still have that flexibility. And once you've completed your application, that's kind of enrolled onto the system for you. So you don't need to do anything in that sense when you arrive. There's only other registration bits, which again, I'll mention here. We also have an airport pickup service. So again, most students from the US tend to arrive in London, in Heathrow. So we have designated arrival dates there that you can take advantage of. But if you're arriving outside of that time, then obviously it's up to you. But we'll let you know as sort of soon as possible what dates that would be for the upcoming year. I think it's been a little bit difficult this year with the pandemic and sitting close to each other in transport and stuff, but it seems to be improving. And then the arrival date that we give to students is always the weekend before International Welcome Week, so normally on the Saturday. So you've got the weekend to actually arrive and settle in. And then International Welcome Week is in the name, so all the students that are international that are coming onto campus. So it could be exchange students, but also just local international students that are studying full-time. And there's a whole host of activities on throughout the week, so you can learn more about adjusting to life in the UK, opening a bank account, your healthcare, your immigration requirements. There's also a welcome dinner. Usually, again, at the moment, that's not happening due to numbers and the pandemic. But that week, the Global Mobility Office, so my team also organise an event for students to get to know other exchange students. And we look at things like your like cultural values and the culture shock curve and things like that to again help you kind of process the fact that you are obviously going to be living in another country and some of the changes you might experience. And then that week is immediately followed by Freshers Week, which is a huge thing in the UK. So no matter what university you go to, we have a week of sort of events, society fairs. So you get to learn about all the social sort of extracurricular activities that you can get involved in during that week. Sometimes there are also faculty inductions. So faculty inductions work differently in different faculties, but you might also have the chance to meet some of your course tutors and learn a little bit more about the course before you start. But there's loads of freebies, which is always interesting for students. The student union also organize a lot of events or social events and things like that. Usually there's a lot of nights out and stuff. Again, that's been almost forgotten what that looks like now because of the pandemic, but slowly it's sort of coming back. So yeah, it's a really fun sort of atmosphere, and a lot of students, that's when you get to know other people during that week. And then term starts. So you technically arrive 2 weeks before term or teaching actually starts, which gives you plenty of time to get settled in, learn about the city. There's campus tours, so you know where you're going, and learn about like the infrastructure, so library, printing, all those things that, again, they sound insignificant, but when you're a new student, obviously you need to know what's happening. We also have a buddy scheme. So if you want to be matched up with a local student, at the moment, we only do that after you actually arrive, and there's a form that you complete. So you can kind of mention your interests and things, and we try to match you with somebody who is similar to you. But if you did want to speak to a local student before this, so maybe when you're doing your application or you're deciding which universities you want to apply to, then our team has an exchange advisor for part of the year, so we could always put you in touch with them. And they've normally participated on a year abroad themselves, so they're aware of some of those sensitivities and things that you might want to actually learn more about. We also have an Explore UK program. So again, in the name, it allows you to kind of visit different parts of the UK, and it's all organized. So you pay towards it, and then everything else, your transport and the visits and things are organized. Again, this is something that we offer to the international students, so exchange students can also participate. Some students like to do it, themselves on their own sort of agenda, but it is there if you need it. And then I've just put the Student Advice Centre there as well, because it is a good kind of point of contact for any academic queries when you first arrive. Again, I can kind of do my best to help you on that, but there is certain sort of knowledge specific that they'd be sort of better handling. So each faculty has their own sort of dedicated advice centre. So anything academic, timetables, again, like systems that you need at the university, so virtual learning centres and things like that, are all kind of, they're there to help you with any questions related to that. So yeah, there's a lot happening with arrival and orientation, but I think that's definitely like the best part. Almost you highlight when you've got all your excitement and the adrenaline, and then you can sort of get settled in before teaching actually starts.
Yeah. Well, do we want to go back to the housing? Because I know that's always a popular.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So with accommodation, there's two sort of routes, I'd say. So if you're studying for the full academic year, you've got a lot more choice. So you can actually apply to stay in one of our 9 halls of residence. So 3 of them are managed by DMU and the rest are private, but you'd apply sort of through the same system essentially. And there's loads of different prices available depending on the size of the room, whether you've got your own private bathroom or whether it's shared. Usually all of them are all self-catered, fully furnished. Internet and sort of bills are inclusive in the rent. There's laundry facilities, security, all of that. And again, the good thing about being in the city centre is that the accommodation is always like, I'd say a maximum 15-minute walk, but the good ones are like 5-10 minutes. And the one for students, for example, is in Castle Court, and that is a 5-minute walk from campus, literally across the road. And all these things are included. It also has its own, so you get a shared kitchen, your own bathroom and bedroom, and then there's also communal sort of study areas, and there's a cinema. So there's that, for students to use if you wanted to. And then the other thing is, if you were looking to rent private, you could, of course, you could do that. I think I'd probably steer away from it just because it is a lot more to sort of organise on your own, and contract lengths might not suit term time and things like that. But because we do have 2 universities in Leicester, there is a lot of student accommodation outside of university managed accommodation as well. So it's always something to consider. And the university also has its own lettings agency on campus, so they can provide advice if you are looking into that. But yeah, I've been to the student accommodation and had a look, and it's perfectly nice, and it's got everything you need as a startup. And then we have a lot of stores nearby that actually have sort of student packs, so the basic bits that you need, I'd say just buy it here, so you don't have to bring it with you in your luggage, like your bedding and things like that. And the good thing about this, so if you are coming in the fall semester, you're basically in the same accommodation as all the other incoming students. So on your first week, literally upon arrival, you'll get to know your neighbours, and people become friends really quickly because they know who they're staying with. But I've seen there's a lot of group chats and things like that, you know, depending on the building that you're staying in. So again, that's a nice way to kind of get to know other people, and you know, despite them studying the same thing as you or not, it's just nice to meet different people. So yeah, and I think the room price is about 118 to 130 pounds per week. I think it was in the other slide how much that would be, if it lets me go back. Yeah, so that would be about 2,500 for the full semester, or about 5,000 for the academic year, which again, I think it reflects, to be honest, the living expenses in Leicester are pretty cheap, and accommodation is, compared to the US, I've noticed it's definitely cheaper. So hopefully that's some good news there as well.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the actual modules? So UK, you'd say modules, we'd say courses.
Yeah.
What are actual classes like? Are they lecture-based, discussion-based? What are students' grades based on?
Mm-hmm. So I think, first of all, this really depends on what you're actually studying. So if you're doing some of the more traditional subjects that are very theoretical, so again, like your business, your law, psychology, education, those tend to have usually per module or per course, there'd be one lecture a week, which is more large scale, which everyone on that course attends. It's kind of a core module. And then you'd have a seminar to go alongside that, which are much smaller. So I think between 15 to 20 people in the class, and you're with your tutor. So it's a lot more one-to-one, face-to-face kind of discussions and stuff. So it's I think a hybrid sort of model. And since the pandemic, I think they have decided to move online classes, sort of lectures to be online, so that you don't, you know, you're not in a large room with other people, but the seminars will still be delivered face to face, so you've got that kind of flexibility as well. And then if you're doing some of the more practical courses, then of course it will be more studio time or lab time, which those courses tend to have less students on them. So again, you get a really good cohort of students that you're working with all the time, and those will be a lot more on campus, hands-on, sort of time with your tutor as well, so they kind of guide you along your projects and things like that. I think, again, compared to what I've heard about studying in the US, it's a bit more, I think, sort of more like down to your work and less interaction with academics, but that also depends on the teachers. I think some prefer to have that kind of rapport with their students, and they encourage participation, and some of the tasks that you might be given will reflect that as well. So you might be asked to do some group work or have debates and things like that. But I think definitely sort of exchange students always stand out in their courses, because you've obviously got a lot more to bring to the class based on your previous study, which might be different to what everyone else in the class has done. So I'd always say, sort of put your hand up, make yourself known to the academics, so you introduce yourself on the first day and they know who you are. And I'm sure they'll be interested to hear about the other things that you studied, and where you come from and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a nice mix, because you get like a bit more, you know, you can focus yourself and make your own notes in your own time with the larger lectures. And then for the seminars, I definitely recommend doing the preparation. So whether that's a bit of reading or whatever homework they give you. Yeah, preparation's usually not assessed. It's more just there to help you understand what's happening in the class. But in terms of assessment, I'd say most of the time, if you're here for fall, then after Christmas usually tends to be the deadlines, or early January. So although you don't actually have to be here physically in January, you might have a couple of deadlines that you can submit electronically. Compared to the US, I think it tends to be more sort of essay based. So there's not as many exams, especially for the fall semester, I think. So I've heard you guys have a lot more sort of multiple choice or weekly even tests. that sort of continuous evaluation, I guess. Whereas in the UK, it's, 50% of your grade will be your essay, and then the other 50% might be a piece of group work and a smaller task that you do at some point throughout the year. So in a sense, you get a lot more time to prepare, and you can also usually pick what you want to address in your essay and things like that. So it's a bit more flexible. Attendance, to my understanding, doesn't actually count towards the course, but of course, like, your tutors will obviously understand if you are attending or not. So we definitely recommend doing that, because sometimes when it leads up to assessments, especially, they do kind of address a couple of things in there. So obviously you don't want to miss that information. And similar for the practical courses, there's a lot more large scale projects. So literally 80% of your course will be a massive project that you've been working on throughout the term. And then if you're here for the full academic year, you might have a lot more exams in the summer. So what we have is semester 1 finishes at Christmas. We have semester 2 sort of late January until Easter. And then after Easter, we have 2 weeks of revision, and then it's all just exams. So although the calendar will say 3 semesters, the last bit is just for revision and an exam period. So at that point, teaching, I'd say, usually ends in about April or May at the latest, and then you've just got to prepare yourself. I think there is possibility to retake exams if you need to. So especially if you're here for the full year and you did something in the fall and you didn't get the result that you needed, you can always kind of request to redo that later on. But yeah, I think that kind of covers everything. I'd say it sounds a bit easier than what it is in the US, but other students have said the other way around. So I think it just depends on what works for you, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely different, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you talked about how close to the city center the campus is. Can you talk a little bit more about, how far they would walk for shops, restaurants, to buy groceries, those sorts of things?
So I think, to be fair, like, one of the shops on campus actually has a fair amount that you'd actually need for your day-to-day. But so the city centre is literally across the road from the main road, and it's a 5-10 minute walk depending on the store that you want to go to. So all your grocery shopping, although a lot of students still, despite living so close, like to do their online shop and get it delivered to campus. Of course, it's easier, you don't have to bring all your bags back with you. But yeah, so it's very close. I actually live on the other side of the city centre from DMU, and it takes me about 15-20 minutes to walk on campus. So that kind of gives you an idea of how big it is. But I've got a couple of pictures later on which show some of the restaurants and things like that. So yeah, you're pretty spoiled for choice. I think it becomes a very easy habit to order out and eat out every day and not cook, which, again, depending on your wallet, might not be the best thing, but definitely really affordable, like different supermarkets as well. So depending on how much you're willing to spend, some are sort of more high end compared to others, but you get all your basic, and I think it's pretty cheap as well for students to kind of deal with that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, some of the other more like furniture-y items, like if you wanted it for your accommodation, you can also find very close by. So Leicester, the way it's actually organised is the city centre is pretty prominent, and it's where all the action's happening. And then around that is just your suburbs, so your more residential areas. Although there is a little, a few things going on in the other parts of town as well. I think that's the best part, is you're just like walking distance away. And I think one of the other questions was about actually moving around the city. And if you're living on campus, you don't need to even bother with a bus pass because you just walk. However, I think if you're doing sort of medium term, so you're going to another part of the city, anything over half an hour, I'd say get the bus. But again, day passes will be plenty, I think, for what you need. And then so Leicester City is actually in the middle, and then we've got a whole county surrounding it, which, again, in terms of things to do, they can be quite nice to actually explore some of the quieter areas. And there you might need to take the bus, or there's even trains to some of them. So yeah, you're going to save money on transport as well.
So how close is the train? Is the train station walkable?
Yeah, train station is actually, if you go that, yeah, I'm just thinking what way is the closest way, but 5 minutes. So when we even have visitors to the university, we literally just recommend they walk, because it's harder to get a car or bus because it takes you all the way around. But there's like a really nice pedestrianised walk from campus to the train station, actually. So it's in walking distance. But But
And
yeah,
how far is the train to London?
the quickest train, if you take it directly, it's an hour, but sometimes they can obviously have other routes that are stopping in other places, which not much longer, to be fair, about an hour and a half or something like that. So that would take you directly to St. Pancras, for example. Um, it's amazing how quick it is sometimes. Like I've been myself, and it's ridiculous. But there's also other cities like Birmingham, Nottingham nearby, which again, plenty of things to do. Um, and then from there, I think if you wanted to travel more to some of the national parks and stuff, maybe it's easier to take a coach. So we also have a coach station in the city centre, which again, even if you want to, save your money from trains, you can take a coach to London, which is less than half the price. So that will definitely, I think it's under construction at the moment. So we're just doing a new coach station, which hopefully should be ready in the next couple of months. But that's again a nice sort of form of transport to have. Even from the airport, it's easy to take the coach in to Leicester.
Yeah. And do you get many international students, many American students each year?
So do you know, so since I actually started working here in 2019, and it's been, with the pandemic and stuff, it's been really wild. But I think normally we do get a couple of students from the US, I'd say about 4 or 5. But most of our students do come from Europe, just it's easier. And then we also get students from Japan and Korea. So there is quite a nice cohort. I'd say about on a normal semester, I'd say about 50 students, and then maybe about half of them would go after fall, and then the rest stayed for the full academic year. So it's quite a small group of students. So again, it's really nice for us because it allows us to organise those events and have a lot more interaction with you. So I didn't mention it before, but we also organise things like visits to sports matches. So if you're interested in the football or the rugby, we usually have something like that. Bonfire night, Christmas, we're able to kind of organise things for students. But then the societies, if you do join one, also have sort of visits and things like that included. So yeah.
What are some of your favorite places in Leicester, or some must recommends for students?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of bits here. So I mentioned the football, and I think if anyone is interested in football, you'll know about this. We won the Premier League, like about 3-4 years ago now, and it was completely unexpected. So since then, football's been a huge kind of part of Leicester, as I think it's an identity really. So that's definitely one of the fun things to do. Definitely catch a match while you're here. So this is a picture from the city centre, where I'd say again it's about a 10-15 minute walk from campus, and that's probably one of my favourite parts, because although it's the same in terms of what's there, there's always things happening, loads of things to do, loads of coffee shops and restaurants and stuff. So if you like your food, then a really good place to come. And also while you're studying, so a lot of people, in between classes, they'll just pop down to the city centre, grab a coffee, and you can bring your laptop and do your work there and then come back. That's become a hugely popular thing with students at the moment. So again, another picture from the city centre in the evening. So loads of restaurants, and that actually in the background, in the middle there, is John Lewis. So it's a big department store, but on the other side there's also a cinema. So it's kind of, again, everything's there for you in the middle. We also have a lot of green spaces, which again, I think the closest park would be about a 15-minute walk. So there's 2 nearby to campus, but there's others that are further out as well. And again, if you want to spend the day there, go for walks and things like that, it's nice to kind of get away from the city a little bit. And there's also, this park specifically has the deers, which I would definitely say, like, if you're in Leicester, this is something you need to do. So it's called Bradgate Park, and it can be a little bit of a faff to get to because it is a bit further out. But it's in a really lovely village, so you can kind of make a day out of it, have your there's a really nice pizza restaurant right next to it actually. So yeah, there's plenty to do. I haven't included too much, but your usual, I think, just things that students like to do: your restaurants, your bars, your nightlife, food, movies, bowling, ice skating. Sometimes, depending on the year, they sometimes like to bring out a rink in the Christmas time. And then all your sports facilities and things like that. I didn't mention we've got a gym on campus as well, if anyone's interested, with a swimming pool and stuff. So again, nice way to meet people and kind of keep up with things that you might be already doing from home. And I think, yeah, in terms of activities, so again, because of the multicultural aspect of Leicester. We've got quite a large number of Indian people and especially Hindu. So the largest celebrations at Diwali outside of India actually happen here. And we've got this one road, it's called the Golden Mile, and it's full of Indian restaurants. But at Diwali time, again, they light it all up. It looks really nice. And they have loads of little stalls and celebrations and dances and performances and things like that. And again, this normally happens during the fall. I've tried to keep everything in the fall so that it applies to everyone. But yeah, normally Diwali, depending on the time of year, it usually falls at the end of the actual year. So this is definitely something that you can catch. This is the Riverside Festival. This one actually happens in the summer, but this is behind DMU. So we've got the canal that is again on the edge of the university. So really nice for walks again. But there's also this festival that happens annually with again loads of food, live performances and things like that. All the narrow boats come out as well. So it's quite a fun situation. I've also got the steam engine. So this is something that's a little bit, I think, like you wouldn't know if you're just here for a bit. So I thought I'd mention it. Like you can take a steam engine train from Leicester to Loughborough, which again is part of the county, but there is also a university there and it's a small town, so there's other things to do, but just something traditional if people are into it, and historic. I've not mentioned Richard III, but I think everybody knows about that. So again, the visitor centre museum is quite nice. And then in terms of actual kind of events, this is, so we have this a cultural quarter, which again there's kind of a cinema showing independent movies and things like that. And one of the cafes, they have this event which is on the last Friday of every month, and they have live music, again culture, street food, and it's all very unique, so it's only there for like that month. So again, if you're here, it's a nice thing to do for students. It's very cheap, and then you get your entry for the rest of the night. And we also have an annual comedy festival, which again, if you're just here for a bit, you probably would miss out on. But this definitely happens during the fall semester, and there's loads of events on for about, I think it's normally about a week and a half. So at different pubs, there's different performances from comedians that actually come into Leicester. So again, if that's your thing, then it's a fun thing to do. But yeah.
Okay, well, I think those are all my questions. Thank you so much. If you want to show your last slide there, then we will.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hold on, I'll just. Yeah, I was going to say if you've just got any questions or any queries, obviously I can try and answer them now, but if there's anything more specific, then you can always drop us an email or even arrange a call like this. I'm happy to do with students.
Thank you so much. I'm going to stop.